On behalf of America's Future, I'd like to welcome you to our ongoing America's Future Tour, a policy series launched late last year to address some of the most pressing and important issues of our time. The mission of Building America's Future is to inform and empower Americans to take ownership of our country's policy direction and demand that our government at all levels enact policy reforms to improve the lives of Americans and make America's future strong. Today we'll be discussing the path back to energy dominance. As a thought leader on this topic, with deep experience in national security and international economic policy, we look forward to hearing from our special guest, David McCormick, on his perspective and how the U.S. should address the issue now and in the future. And with that, I'll turn things over to Senate Pro Tem Kim Ward. Thank you.
Is this working? Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, I'm short, so I can't stand back here. So but I don't want to forget anything, so I'm going to use this stool as my desk. It better suits. It's very nice to see you all here this morning for this very important event and to hear from David McCormick. You know, David could be the future of what happens to energy here in Pennsylvania. So I'm happy to be part of that. And thank you, Peter, for including me. Thank you to our host, Building America's Future. It's a great public policy organization dedicated to ideas and policy that make America's future strong. On the America's Future Tour, there have been discussions about China, about unfair trade practices, about fentanyl flowing across the border, and land purchases by the CCP. Today, our hosts are launching, and I'm just really so honored to be able to be part of this, a new series we all know well in Pennsylvania, energy production. Specifically, the path back to energy dominance. You will soon hear from EQT CEO Toby Rice on the importance of development in the Commonwealth and the need for increased infrastructure. And of course, we're going to hear from our Senate candidate, David McCormick, on his Keystone agenda to reclaim America. But first, I want to give you a little bit of update on what we're doing at the state level to hold the line against Governor Shapiro's Biden-style regime that'll cost Pennsylvanians their jobs, not to mention much-needed new investment. David said it well recently. Bob Casey pushed a radical cap-and-trade policy that would have cost us hundreds of thousands of jobs, as well as a lot of investment. And now the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection is following suit. We must, in Pennsylvania, we must make our businesses' regulatory climate more competitive to succeed. You know, we hear our governor saying, I'm tired of losing to Ohio. Yeah, we all are tired of losing to other states. And part of the reason we're losing is because of the regulatory climate here, not to mention the tax climate here in Pennsylvania. And we need to continue to work to change that. You know, the governor at first said you're going to get your money back if you don't get your permit in a certain amount of time. But nobody wants their money back. Companies want their permits. When they're coming to invest in Pennsylvania, you know, $500, $2,000, they don't want that. They want their permit. They want to build. We all know too well here in southwestern Pennsylvania what happened because of regulatory reform and permitting with U.S. Steel a couple of years ago. They left. We can't afford that. I'll never forget Asia Hutchison saying, the senator from Arkansas, standing up and saying, we have this plant built here in Arkansas before Pennsylvania would have had a permit out the door. That's embarrassing. So between the need for rural regulatory reform and the governor's appeal of Reggie, we're losing precious time and our consumers are paying higher electric bills. The energy industry makes everything better here in Pennsylvania. With the current energy problems we're seeing in the world, the unrest, the Ukraine issue, the unrest in the Middle East, now is not the time for us to be creating more problems to developing energy, because energy security is national security. And Pennsylvania's energy resources are a pathway to prosperity, creating good-paying jobs that drive our state's economy while also serving the interests of our national security. From our caucus, from the Senate caucus in the state, we think we need to unleash our energy. We need to stop the war on fossil fuels. We have room in this state for all energy, and integrating it would be probably the best pathway. We, here in Pennsylvania, have so much gas, so much fossil fuels, so many things that could make us prosperous, that we need to stop inhibiting them. You know, and it comes from the state level and the federal level. Hopefully David McCormick will do something, and I know he will, once he gets to the U.S. Senate. I like to say that President Biden closed the pipelines and opened the border. Seems a little bit backwards, doesn't it? So with that, I am thrilled today to be able to introduce a leading champion for the energy industry with major operations right here in our Commonwealth. Okay, I'm losing my place here. Sorry. Toby Rice is the president and CEO of EQT. They're right here in Pittsburgh. We are so happy to have Toby Rice with us today. It's my honor to introduce him, and I want to thank him for all of his work and all of his leadership on energy here in our Commonwealth and our nation. And with that, Toby Rice. And I just want to say how I'm so impressed that this gentleman, he's the next generation after me, right? And he's going to lead the way. Hopefully the next generation does better than some of us in this generation.
Thank you, Kim. And so my name is Toby Rice, and I represent the next generation of oil and gas. We refer to ourselves as the Shillennials, and leveraging all the great benefits from the shale revolution, which has completely transformed not only our country, but geopolitics around the world. Before I bring Dave up on stage, I want to just put out a couple key remarks here I think are really important for us to think about. American energy is an American advantage. And similarly, Pennsylvania energy is a Pennsylvania advantage. Fuels our economy, helps advance our climate goals. And also, American energy is one of the most scrutinized industries in this country. And despite being scrutinized heavily, unfortunately, we're one of the biggest misunderstood industries in America. Well, we're going to change that, and we're going to change the perception of our industry. So EQT is America's largest natural gas producer. We produce about 6 BCF a day, which is the energy equivalent of about 1 million barrels a day of energy, but in natural gas form. Think about that. That's coming from this region. What people need to understand about our industry is that, we have a higher purpose. Why do we exist? We exist to provide energy security to America and the world, and also lower global emissions. Every day in our company, our mission is to make the energy we produce cheaper, more reliable, and cleaner. And our vision is to transition the world from coal to gas and transform natural gas to a zero-carbon energy solution. And all along the way, using our values of trust, teamwork, heart, and evolution. This is how we're going to change the conversation and have people actually understand the tremendous benefit that American energy brings to the world. But we are very well misunderstood. And I've been saying a lot about some of the political forces that have been acting against our industry and preventing us from doing the great work that we do. And you can see the clear signs of the challenges that we face. The fact that we built fewer pipelines in the last last year than we had in the prior 30 years is a sign of how difficult it is. The fact that we have to have an act of Congress to get a piece of energy infrastructure built in this country is a sign that things are broken. And I've been spending a lot of time going to D.C. I've done over 80 meetings there over the past 18 months trying to change the conversation. And one of the talking points that's going on in Washington is one where people will say, sure, we hear that it might be challenging for American energy producers, but American energy producers are producing at record levels of oil production, record levels of natural gas, and we're also the biggest exporter of natural gas in the world. It can't be that hard. Well, I think we're asking the wrong question. Look at the world around us and ask yourself one question. Are we doing enough? Rampant inflation, war in Ukraine, global emissions still skyrocketing, energy security is crippled, Energy poverty is growing. Clearly, American energy is not doing enough. We have to change that, and we need leaders that will help us change that because we have some really amazing solutions. You've all seen the benefits of the shale revolution, and no state has been a greater beneficiary than the great state of Pennsylvania. But we can take this now and take these resources that have given us our energy security, and we need to start thinking about how we can provide the energy security to the world. Because the world can only contain so much chaos until it spills over and starts impacting America. So the world's energy security is our energy security. And we've got to start asking bigger questions. What can the United States do to provide energy security outside of our borders? And also, what can the United States do to lower emissions outside of our borders, not just within? And American energy, specifically American natural gas, is one of the most impactful solutions that we have got to bring to the market. I've been talking a little bit about that solution. We have the resource in this country. We've got the workforce to quadruple our LNG exports. And if we can do that, then from an environmental perspective, that will be equivalent to electrifying every car in this country, putting solar panels in every house, and also doubling U.S. wind capacity combined. Doing this from an environmental perspective would double the environmental benefits that we've received here in this country over the past 15 years, but it's going to be done outside of our borders. And from an energy security perspective, this amount of energy would be 60 BCF a day. Not a lot of people know what that means, but let me put this in perspective. We have the potential to add an amount of energy that would be equivalent to adding 10 million barrels a day of clean energy to the world stage. That is the equivalent of adding a Saudi Arabia of clean energy to the world stage that is going to be a decarbonizing force. It's going to bring peace. It's going to bring progress. And it's going to give Americans a tremendous amount of security. Because exports means surplus, and surplus means security for Americans. It also means jobs. It also means strengthening all of the economic benefits that we love and talk about. But these are the solutions that we have. And all it takes for us to bring these amazing solutions to work, we need permit reform. We need leadership in Washington that will make this a priority. And so the days of political force overriding market forces, and the days of political force challenging American energy production, that's going to change. And we're going to have leaders like Dave that's going to help use these political forces to help strengthen our energy future. And we're really excited about the vision that he has to share with us today. So I'd like to introduce Dave. Would you come up here, please?
Thank you. All right, thanks. What a great crowd. Thank you all for coming out today. I appreciate it. Good morning, and thank you, Toby, for that kind introduction. You've been a real leader, not just in Pennsylvania in helping harness our incredible natural resources, but in making the case for unleashing this resource for the nation and for the world. So thank you for being here. Thank you for Kim Ward, President Pro-Temp, for your leadership and everything you do. We also have some other public officials. Rob McCurry, I think you're here. Is that right? Rob, thank you. Running for Congress. Senator Bartolotta, are you here? Yeah, there she is. Okay, thank you for coming. We also have Christine Toretti, National Committee Woman, also my finance chair. Thank you so much. Sam DeMarco for our chairman of Allegheny County. So we've got lots of great public officials. You know, there's no better place to talk about the importance of energy to our Commonwealth and our country than right here in Western Pennsylvania. Oh, Governor Corbett, I didn't say. Governor Corbett, thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you, sir. He knows more about this than anybody. This is the location of the first commercially successful oil well in our nation's history. It was right here in Titusville in 1861. These milestones sparked an energy revolution that fueled America's economy, and it made America a global energy power. And it's time we do that again. America, led by Pennsylvania, must become the world's most energy-dominant nation. We must drill more, we must produce more, we must renew more, and we must export more. America is in a great position. Given our abundant blessings, we can produce more oil, more gas, more shale, more nuclear, more wind, more solar, more hydro, and more renewable energy. We can lead the world in innovation, resulting in breakthroughs on carbon capture, on hydrogen energy development, on electric airplanes, on clean aviation fuel, battery-powered trucks. Who knows what comes next if we apply American ingenuity to our energy and our environmental needs? And over the last 2 decades, as Toby said, Pennsylvania has been part of an amazing new energy revolution. Natural gas extracted from the Marcellus Shale has made Pennsylvania the second largest energy-producing state in the country, but here's the crazy thing, the 4th largest natural gas reserves in the entire world. Unbelievable. And the labs at Carnegie Mellon and other Pennsylvania universities are developing the next generation of energy innovations. A plentiful, cheap, and efficient energy supply helps small businesses create good-paying jobs for workers. It reduces the cost of living for families so they can invest in their future. And it's a crucial, crucial source of American economic power around the world. If there was only one thing we could do to unlock a bright economic future for the Commonwealth, this would be it. The single most important thing. And the only thing stopping us from becoming energy dominant is ourselves. The only thing. It's red tape. It's backward thinking. It's the lack of imagination. It's China. It's Washington bureaucrats. And it's guys like Senator Bob Casey. Senator Casey and President Biden are pursuing an anti-fossil fuel agenda that irrationally constrains production and energy infrastructure right here at home. And in the greatest twist of irony, their policies actually hurt our environment. This agenda rolled back the progress we had made under President Trump towards unleashing America's bountiful energy resources. And we need leaders who are going to reject this agenda and the radical environmental groups behind it, and instead unleash America's energy future, not tighten the reins on it. And Senator Casey's not up to that task. Now, today is the second in a series of speeches I'm delivering across the Commonwealth to lay out this keystone agenda to reclaim America. And based on my experience as a job creator and as a government official who was very involved in advancing America's energy security, I'm going to discuss with you how we can achieve energy dominance by unleashing the resources in places like Pennsylvania, to protect the environment, to make America the leader in clean energy technology. Now, when President Biden and Senator Casey look at our nation's bountiful fossil fuel reserves, they see a problem. They don't see an opportunity. They don't see the key to continued American prosperity. Oil and gas production is rising in spite of, not because of the policies that Senator Casey has supported. He's consistently voted against expediting oil and gas leases on federal lands. After previously supporting the project, Casey voted in lockstep with President Biden against approving the Keystone Pipeline, which would have made us much less reliant on the Middle East. And when the administration announced it would stop approving terminals to export American natural gas to the world, a decision that would actually hurt, not help the environment, Senator Casey put out a statement expressing concern about the decision, but's done nothing to take concrete action. That's weakness. That's not leadership. Senator Casey also championed a radical cap-and-trade policy that would have cost Pennsylvania tens of billions of dollars and 500,000 jobs. And he's consistently and constantly voted in favor of raising taxes on energy producers that would raise electricity rates and gas prices on everyday consumers. That's the way free enterprise works. And if the Casey-backed Clean Power Plan had gone into effect, electricity rates in Pennsylvania would have gone up by almost 50%. More concerning, Senator Casey is making America more dependent on the Chinese Communist Party for our energy future. He's embraced President Biden's administration's systematic effort to impose mandates on still developing clean technologies. That will make us more reliant on Chinese companies and kill American manufacturing jobs. The Biden administration's green climate crusade, which Senator Casey has supported every step of the way, is pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into things like electric vehicles and solar panels that currently require components from China while fueling even higher inflation here at home. You know, Biden's own Energy Department admits that China controls 61% of global lithium refining that's so critical to electric vehicles. And we depend on China for solar panels, which use polysilicon sourced from a region in the CCP, which imprisons Uyghurs. And sadly, we're already seeing the results of these policies. U.S. imports of Chinese lithium batteries have increased by 500% since President Biden took office. And by effectively mandating that most new vehicles be EVs by 2032, the administration is forcing automakers to become more reliant on China. This isn't just academic. These misguided policies hurt Americans in 4 ways. First, they drove up energy prices, which, along with trillions of dollars in government spending, sent inflation to the highest levels in a generation. And that was damaging to us all, but particularly working families, millions of working families across the country and across Pennsylvania. Second, these policies undermine our national security by making our energy sector more dependent on China and foreign dictators. The Biden administration has made an enormous strategic miscalculation by making us more dependent on our greatest adversary for the lifeblood of our economy. Just look at what happened to Germany. It was dependent on Russia for natural gas and coal, and now is having to completely change its energy supply chains based on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And repeatedly throwing lifelines to dictators like Maduro and Venezuela only puts more money in the hands of rogue regimes. Third, these policies have hurt the environment because they've made us more dependent on foreign oil and restricting exports of American natural gas to countries that will burn that and instead will burn more foreign coal. And finally, these policies are killing critical manufacturing jobs here at home by supporting clean energy companies in China and forcing a transition to electric vehicles, which will put the jobs of an estimated 117,000 American auto workers at risk. You know, to state the obvious, we need a different path. We need a different path. And today I'm proposing 3 steps to energy dominance. These steps will unleash the energy powerhouse that is the United States of America, but to accomplish them, we need career politicians like Senator Casey to get out of the way. We need an affordable and accessible energy supply driven by American innovation. We need that to build a brighter future for Pennsylvania and for the nation. Step 1, we need to unleash oil and gas production here at home. We need to remove the constraints the Biden administration has imposed on new oil and gas projects on foreign lands, federal lands rather. We need to get back to the policies under President Trump that let our energy industry do their job. Unlocking these resources that belong to the American people will create a cheaper and even more reliable global energy supply. We need to build the infrastructure needed to get oil and gas from energy-producing regions like Western Pennsylvania to the rest of the country and to the global market. If pipeline and terminal capacity expands, producers will grow production accordingly. Not only will consumers and our overall economy benefit, but thousands and thousands of Pennsylvania landowners who receive royalties from production on their land. And building new infrastructure for exporting liquefied natural gas must be at the top of the list. It must be. LNG is significantly cleaner than coal, and using it to replace coal overseas is one of the most significant ways to reduce global emissions. It's good for Pennsylvania workers, it's good for America, it's good for our allies and partners who want to reduce their dependence on authoritarian regimes while building their economies and protecting the environment, all at the same time. While the Gulf Coast has a growing number of LNG export terminals, pipelines and export capacity on the East Coast are tapped out. And that puts Pennsylvania at a huge competitive disadvantage. We need to break that cycle of promised infrastructure projects being canceled because of campaigns and lawsuits backed by radical environmental groups, and we need to finally unleash Pennsylvania's energy future. That's why permitting reform is so important. So important. Even when companies want to build new infrastructure, it gets held up for years by federal red tape that delays projects on average by more than 5 years, if they're approved at all. And if a project meets federal requirements and agencies miss deadlines to issue approvals, that project should move forward. We shouldn't have to wait for bureaucrats in Washington to get their act together or for drawn-out lawsuits in court. The American people are tired of suffering from higher energy prices because their own government can't get its act together. And this is not just about oil and gas infrastructure. Clean energy projects will also benefit from an improved permitting process. Step 2, we need to embrace an all-of-the-above energy approach that provides market-driven support to clean energy alternatives, including nuclear. Cheap and reliable clean energy will be critical to powering advanced technologies, such as artificial intelligence and data centers and tech infrastructure, all the things that it needs to support. Production of steel and aluminum and advanced manufacturing, they all require significant amounts of power. And if Pennsylvania cannot compete and provide the affordable, reliable energy these industries need, those jobs are going elsewhere. Or even worse, they're going overseas to places like China. For that reason, initiatives like the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative will be so damaging to both businesses and working families. And that's why nuclear power has to be a significant part of our energy mix. Countries around the world have proven nuclear, like natural gas, can provide safe and reliable baseload power at scale. And over the long term, the variable power provided by solar and wind will not be sustainable without nuclear and natural gas. Unleashing nuclear energy will require reforming the approval process for nuclear projects while balancing safety concerns. Building on the size and safety innovations in small modular reactors, we need to advance nuclear projects, and a licensing process should be more efficient to get reactors online. And we should also facilitate investment from trusted partners like Japan with successful nuclear track records to expand nuclear capacity right here in the United States. And finally, we should embrace new emerging technologies like carbon capture and storage that can lower or offset emissions from power plants, manufacturing, and other industrial facilities. Step 3, we need to leverage our abundant resources as a source of geopolitical strength. Achieving this starts with ending policies that make us more dependent on China for clean energy. The supply chains for solar and wind, electric vehicles, and other clean energy technology should be based whenever possible, right here in America, or with our most reliable trade partners. We even have many of these critical minerals, like lithium, right here in America. But we can't harness them because of burdensome permitting and environmental regulations. And this has to change. We have to stop sending American taxpayer dollars to companies controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. No solar panels from China and no electric vehicle components from China, period. And finally, we must also leverage energy resources to advance U.S. national security. In addition to expanding LNG exports, we need to expand pipeline infrastructure across borders with Canada and Mexico, each of which have significant oil and gas resources. That's why canceling the Keystone Pipeline, which President Trump had approved, was such a mistake to our energy security. North America can and should be an energy powerhouse that can compete with OPEC. And finally, I want to spend a minute on the environment. Everything I've laid out today can be done while also being good stewards of our environment. That's a false trade-off, what you hear the Democrats say, what you hear Senator Casey say. It's a false trade-off. Pennsylvania is one of the most beautiful states in our union. And I'm a firm believer in conserving and protecting our natural resources. And while some still dispute it, the science is clear that climate change, as defined by rising global temperatures, is happening. And there's also no doubt that human activity is one of the many contributing factors. But the key question, let's stop that debate. The key question is how to manage that reality. Our leaders must mitigate the risk of climate change through adaptation and energy policies that do not impose significant damage on our society, on our economy, and on our security. And policymakers must reckon with the reality that China and India combined are responsible for 1/3 of global emissions and growing rapidly. Now, what we've shown in America over the past 2 decades is that this balance is achievable. Total U.S. emissions in 2022 were nearly 16% lower than 2005 levels. And CO2 emissions from power generation are down 33%. That happened during a period when our economy and our population continued to grow. And this was made possible by American innovation. Our ability to harness natural gas from shale in places like Western Pennsylvania started to shift from coal power plants to natural gas, which decreased our carbon footprint while letting the economy grow. Yeah, that's right. Places like EQT. The solution to climate change won't come from command and control orders from Washington that impose choices and raise prices and deprive people of affordable energy. They're not going to come from that. The solutions will come from good old American capitalism and innovation and science. And that's what this agenda is all about. So I want to talk about this election because everybody says this is the most important election of your lifetime, every election. But this really is. Think about it. Think about your lifetimes. Think about an election in your lifetime, Governor, that was more important than this one. And this election, among other things, will be a choice between 2 very different approaches to our nation's energy strategy. Whether America will unleash its energy resources and market-driven innovation to power our nation and achieve energy dominance, or will we cave to radical agendas that make us more dependent on China, destroy jobs, and force American families to swallow ever-growing energy bills? With this critical crossroads, and it's a crossroads, it's a choice in mind, and I'd like to end by asking Senator Casey, where does he stand? First, will Senator Casey oppose President Biden's stated goal of removing fossil fuels from the power sector, which would raise electricity costs for Pennsylvania families? Will he oppose that? Second, will Casey oppose President Biden's electric vehicle mandates that will put the jobs of auto workers in Pennsylvania and across the country at risk? And third, will the senator stop making America even more dependent on lithium batteries and solar panels imported from China? Now, in some ways, those questions are rhetorical because given Senator Casey's track record, I suspect the answer to all of these questions will be a resounding no. And that's why Senator Casey has squandered the credibility needed to lead on these issues, and squandered the opportunity to represent one of the nation's leading energy-producing states. If I'm elected, I'll work hard every day to unleash the energy future that Pennsylvania and America deserve. A future where cheap and abundant American energy powers our nation and the world while protecting the environment and leaving our country better off for my children and their generation. If elected to the Senate, that's how I will lead. That's how I will lead, and I would be honored to have your support. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.